Karen stood in the path of the royal guards, smirking confidently, convinced they would simply walk around her. After all, aren't they just actors in fancy costumes putting on a show for tourists? But what happened next would shatter that illusion in the most painful way possible. And before we dive into this shocking story, let us know in the comments below where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow we're bringing you another incredible story about respect, tradition, and the consequences of entitlement that you absolutely won't want to miss. Picture this. A bright afternoon at Buckingham Palace. Hundreds of tourists gathered, cameras ready, excited children pointing at the guards in their iconic red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. Everyone's waiting patiently for the famous changing of the guard ceremony. It's one of London's most popular attractions, drawing millions of visitors every single year. But here's what most tourists don't understand, and what Karen was about to learn the hard way. These aren't actors, these aren't theme park employees in costumes. These are real soldiers, active duty military personnel who have served their country in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. Let me explain something crucial that will help you understand why what happened to Karen was completely inevitable. The royal guards you see standing outside Buckingham Palace and other royal residences are not just there for decoration. They're part of 5 elite infantry regiments: the Grenadier Guards, the Coldstream Guards, the Scots Guards, the Irish Guards, and the Welsh Guards. These are some of Britain's oldest and most prestigious military units, with histories stretching back centuries. And here's the shocking part that most tourists never realize. Many of these guards have served in actual combat zones. They've been deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, and other conflict areas around the world. The young man standing perfectly still in that red tunic and bearskin hat might have been dodging bullets in Helmand Province just months ago. He's not playing soldier. He is a soldier, with real military training, real combat experience, and real authority. But getting selected for the Queen's Guard, now the King's Guard, isn't easy. There are strict requirements. You must be at least 178 centimeters tall. You need to pass rigorous physical fitness tests, psychological evaluations, and then undergo 6 months to 1 year of intense specialized training. This isn't a job you can just apply for online. It's an honor earned through dedication, skill, and unwavering discipline. And once you're selected, the rules you must follow are absolutely brutal. Imagine standing completely motionless like a statue for extended periods. You cannot smile. You cannot laugh. You cannot show any emotion whatsoever. In fact, if a guard is caught smiling or laughing while on duty, they can be fined up to a week's pay. That's around $355 gone just for cracking a smile. Think about that for a moment. Someone could be making funny faces at you, telling jokes, trying everything to get a reaction, and you have to remain stone-faced because your job, your honor, and your paycheck depend on it. But it gets even more intense. Guards stand on duty for 2-hour shifts, and during those 2 hours they cannot eat, cannot drink, cannot smoke, cannot sit down, and cannot even go to the bathroom. After 10 minutes of standing perfectly still, they're allowed to march exactly 15 paces back and forth. This isn't just for show. It's to prevent them from fainting, because standing completely still for long periods cuts off blood circulation to the brain. And speaking of fainting, there's even a protocol for that. If a guard feels himself losing consciousness, he must faint straight forward onto his face. Not to the side, not backward, but forward, protecting his rifle and maintaining discipline even while unconscious. Now think about those bearskin hats, those iconic tall, fuzzy black hats. They're not lightweight props. They weigh between 4.5 to 9 pounds, and the guards wear them for hours in all weather conditions. Blazing summer heat, pouring rain, freezing winter cold. It doesn't matter. The guard stands his post. The uniform stays perfect. The discipline never wavers. But here's where it gets really serious for our story. The marching route that the guards follow during ceremonies like the changing of the guard isn't just a suggested path. It's a royal order. It's a military command that has been followed for over 520 years. When those guards march, they're not just performing for tourists. They're executing official military duties assigned to them by their commanding officers. Deviating from that path even by a few feet would constitute military disobedience, which is a serious offense in any army. And here's the crucial part that Karen didn't understand or didn't care about. The guards are legally authorized to remove any obstacles from their designated path using necessary and controlled force. This isn't something they might do or could do. This is something they will do and must do according to their orders. It's not personal. It's not negotiable. It's military protocol that has been established, tested, and upheld for centuries. Before the guards even get close, multiple warnings are always given. Palace attendants position themselves along the route, reminding tourists to stay back. Security officers make announcements. Other visitors who understand the rules often warn people who are standing in the wrong places. Signs are posted, barriers are set up, and as the guards approach, you'll hear the command, "Make way for the King's Guard," loud, clear, and unmistakable. But despite all these precautions, despite all these warnings, some tourists still don't get it. Or worse, they think the rules don't apply to them. And this is where social media has made everything worse. People don't just want to see the guards anymore. They want that perfect selfie, that viral video, that Instagram moment that will get them likes and shares and validation from strangers online. So they push boundaries. They get too close. They touch the guards. They make faces. They deliberately try to provoke reactions because in their minds these are just actors in a tourist show, not real soldiers with real authority and real weapons. Yes, weapons. Because those rifles the guards carry aren't props. They're real functioning weapons. And while they're not loaded during ceremonial duties, the bayonets attached to them are very real and very sharp. Guards are trained and authorized to present those bayonets if they feel threatened. They can and will shout warnings at tourists who get too close. Phrases like, "Stand back from the King's Guard," or "Get back," have startled many tourists who thought they were just having innocent fun. There have been incidents where tourists tried to touch guards or grab their uniforms and found themselves staring down the business end of a very real bayonet, with a very serious soldier behind it. Suddenly it's not so funny anymore. Suddenly people realize these aren't performers, they're protectors doing a job that requires both ceremonial precision and actual security awareness. But let's get back to Karen and what happened on that fateful afternoon at Buckingham Palace. Karen arrived at the palace grounds with all the confidence of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. Designer outfit, expensive handbag, perfect hair and makeup, and that unmistakable air of entitlement that says the rules are for other people, not for me. She didn't join the designated tourist viewing areas where hundreds of other visitors were patiently waiting. Instead, she pushed her way through the crowd, ignoring the polite protests of families who had been waiting for the perfect view spot. An elderly couple who had traveled halfway around the world to see this ceremony tried to hold their ground, but Karen shouldered past them without a second thought. "Some of us have places to be," she announced to no one in particular, as if her schedule was more important than everyone else's. A young father with 2 excited children attempted to position his family for a photo, but Karen planted herself right in front of them, blocking their view completely. When the father politely asked her to move, she waved him off dismissively. "They can wait," she said, gesturing at his children, as if their excitement and anticipation meant nothing compared to her need for the perfect photo opportunity. And where did Karen choose to stand? Not behind the barriers, not in the designated tourist areas, but directly in the path where the guards would soon be marching. The exact spot that had been clearly marked and repeatedly announced as off-limits. A palace attendant approached her, professionally polite, despite having dealt with difficult tourists all day. "Ma'am, the queue starts back there." He gestured to where other visitors were waiting. "You'll need to move for safety reasons." Karen didn't even look at him. "Do you know who I am?" she replied with that classic entitled phrase that has preceded so many viral moments. "I'm not standing in line like some common tourist." She pulled out her phone, adjusting her angle, trying to find the perfect position for her selfie, completely ignoring the attendant's increasingly urgent requests. "Ma'am, for security reasons, all visitors must stay behind the barriers." The attendant tried again, his professional composure starting to crack. "Security reasons?" Karen laughed, loud enough to turn heads. "For what? Those toy soldiers playing dress-up? This whole thing is just a tourist trap anyway. I'm here to take my photo, and then I have a lunch reservation at an expensive restaurant. I don't have time for this nonsense." Talking about security and tourist traps when you're literally standing in the path of active duty military personnel. A retired serviceman stepped forward, his blazer decorated with campaign medals that spoke of real military service, real deployments, real sacrifice. "Ma'am, you'll need to move back," he said firmly but respectfully. "The guards will be coming through here shortly and they won't stop." Karen looked him up and down, her expression dripping with condescension. "Oh, please." She rolled her eyes, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "They can walk around me. I'm not moving until I get my perfect shot." She held up her phone, waving it slightly, as if this explained everything, as if her desire for a social media post justified blocking a 520-year-old military ceremony. His weathered face tightened with controlled anger. "These aren't actors, ma'am. They're active duty soldiers performing their sworn duty. The path they march isn't just tradition, it's their assigned route under orders." Sworn duty? Karen's laugh was sharp enough to make several nearby children flinch. Orders to march in funny hats? To stand still like statues? Please. She waved her hand dismissively at his medals. "I suppose you used to play dress-up too." The crowd around them had grown quiet. People were staring now, some with disapproval at Karen's behavior, others with genuine concern about what was about to happen. The veteran's companion, another former military man, placed a steadying hand on his friend's shoulder. "Save your breath, John," he said quietly. "Some lessons have to be learned the hard way." In the distance, the first sounds of martial music drifted across the palace grounds. The ceremony was beginning. The changing of the guard was about to commence. And with it, the precise, disciplined march of soldiers who had trained for years to execute their duties with unwavering perfection. A palace security officer hurried over, his tone urgent in a way that should have alarmed anyone with common sense. "Last warning," he called out. "Clear the path immediately. The guards will not stop or deviate from their route." "Oh, for heaven's sake!" Karen's voice rose even louder now, clearly playing to the crowd of tourists with their cameras. "This is a public space. I pay my taxes. Well, my husband does. And I have every right to stand wherever I want." She turned, addressing the gathered tourists as if expecting support, as if she was some kind of freedom fighter standing up against oppressive rules. "This is ridiculous. They're just guards at a tourist attraction. What are they going to do, walk through me?" The marching grew closer now, the rhythmic sound of boots on ancient cobblestones echoing through the courtyard. The formation had rounded the corner, and suddenly they were visible. Scarlet uniforms, pristine and bright, bearskin hats, tall and imposing, rifles at the precise angle decades of training had perfected, and at the front, leading his unit, was Guard James Windsor, his bearing absolutely perfect, his eyes trained straight ahead, his face showing no emotion whatsoever. Every step measured, every movement controlled. This was not a man playing a role. This was a soldier executing his duty. A mother with 2 young children grabbed Karen's arm, desperation in her voice. "Please, you're going to get hurt. They're not allowed to stop or change course. They will walk right through you if you don't move." Karen jerked her arm away. Her response was to plant her feet even more firmly, raising her phone higher. "Then they better learn some customer service skills," she declared. "I'm not moving for anyone in a costume, no matter how fancy their little hats are." The drums grew louder, the marching more distinct. The crowd had pulled back now, leaving Karen isolated in a clear space that would soon be filled by advancing guards. Tourists had their cameras up, but not to take happy vacation photos. They were recording what they sensed was about to become a viral moment, for very different reasons. The veteran who had tried to warn her shook his head slowly. He'd seen this type of entitled behavior before during his years of service, and he knew exactly how it would end. The same way it always ended when civilian arrogance met military discipline. Guard Windsor's eyes, trained by years of military service to assess situations instantly, had already registered the obstruction in their path. His brain had processed the threat level, calculated the response needed, and prepared his body for the action that protocol demanded. But his step never faltered. His bearing never changed. His eyes never left their forward focus. The formation moved with the inevitability of tide, of time, of tradition itself, closing the distance between ceremony and consequences. "This is your final warning," The security officer's voice carried real urgency now. "Clear the path or you will be forcibly removed." "Try it," Karen shot back, her stance becoming even more defiant. "I'd love to see you explain that to my lawyer." She raised her phone higher, completely oblivious to the fact that she was about to become an object lesson in respect, one that would hurt significantly more than her pride. The distance between Guard Windsor's unit and Karen had shrunk to mere yards, yet she remained planted there, phone held high with defiant determination. The rhythmic thunder of their boots against the ancient stones seemed to make the very air vibrate with authority. "Make way for the King's Guard." The command rang out, sharp and clear across the courtyard. Still Karen stood her ground, a smirk playing across her lips as she watched the approaching formation through her phone screen, angling for that perfect shot, that viral moment, that social media gold. "Last chance," someone from the crowd called out. "They're not going to stop." "Oh, please," Karen called back without even lowering her phone. "This isn't some military base. This is a tourist spot and I'm a paying visitor." She raised her voice, directing it at the approaching guards. "You lot work for us, remember? The public. Time to learn some basic customer service." The collision when it came was precise and controlled, yet still forceful enough to send Karen sprawling. Guard Windsor's shoulder barge, executed with military precision, struck her just hard enough to remove her from the formation's path. It wasn't brutal. It wasn't cruel. It was simply efficient, the minimum force necessary to clear an obstacle from a military patrol route. Her designer sunglasses went flying in one direction, her phone in another, as she landed hard on the cobblestones. But fate wasn't finished teaching its lesson. As the formation continued their unwavering march, Guard Windsor's boot came down squarely on Karen's outstretched hand, the one she'd flung out instinctively to break her fall. The impact wasn't deliberate, wasn't malicious. It was simply the inevitable result of an immovable force encountering an object that had refused to move. Her scream shattered the ceremonial atmosphere. "You broke my hand." She scrambled to her knees, cradling her injured hand against her chest. "Did everyone see that? He assaulted me. That thug deliberately attacked me." The guards marched on, their formation unbroken, their discipline unwavering. Guard Windsor's eyes remained fixed forward, his bearing as perfect as if absolutely nothing had occurred. The only evidence of the incident was a slight scuff mark on his otherwise immaculate boot. "How dare you!" Karen struggled to her feet, her designer outfit now bearing the dirt and marks of the ancient courtyard stones. "Stop right now. I'm talking to you." Her voice rose to a shriek as the formation continued its precise march, completely ignoring her existence, as if she were nothing more than a pigeon that had been in the path. "Do you know who my husband is? I'll have your job for this. I'll have your entire career destroyed." The veteran who had warned her earlier stepped forward, offering a steadying hand, which she angrily slapped away. "Don't touch me. I want the police. I want names. I want badge numbers." Her face had turned an alarming shade of red that almost matched the guards' uniforms. "That man attacked me. He used excessive force. I could have been killed." "Ma'am." The palace security officer approached, his tone professionally neutral, despite having witnessed her ignore at least 6 separate warnings. "You were advised repeatedly to clear the path. The King's Guard are authorized to remove any obstacles from their assigned route. This is established protocol that has been in place for centuries." "Obstacles?" Karen's voice reached a new pitch of indignation. "I am a tax-paying citizen. That man," she pointed at Guard Windsor's retreating back, "assaulted me. He body-slammed me to the ground. He stomped on my hand. I demand he be arrested immediately. I want his name, his badge number, his commanding officer, everything." A small crowd had gathered around her now, though not with the sympathy she clearly expected. Several tourists who had captured the entire incident on their phones were shaking their heads. Some were even laughing quietly at the spectacle of entitlement meeting its match. The veteran stood nearby, his face a mask of professional neutrality that did little to hide his complete lack of surprise at the outcome. "I want his name," Karen continued, her voice echoing off the palace walls. "I want to know exactly who that thug is so my lawyers can destroy him." The formation had reached their destination now, executing a perfect 90-degree turn with the precision that came from countless hours of drill practice. Guard Windsor took his position at his new post, his bearing perfect, his rifle at exactly the correct angle, his face showing absolutely no sign that anything unusual had occurred, because to him, nothing unusual had occurred. He had simply followed his training, executed his orders, and maintained the discipline expected of a member of the King's Guard. "Ma'am," the security officer tried again. "If you'd like to file a formal complaint, there are proper channels we can direct you to." "Complaint?" Karen snatched up her fallen phone from the cobblestones, checking it frantically for cracks and damage. "I'm going to do more than file a complaint. I'm going to sue. I'm going to have the media here by tonight. Everyone will know how these thugs in fancy dress treat innocent women." She jabbed a finger toward Guard Windsor's distant post. "That man is a menace. He's dangerous. He should be in prison, not playing soldier at a tourist attraction." The two veterans exchanged knowing glances, both men recognizing the familiar pattern of entitled behavior meeting immovable authority. They had seen it countless times during their years of service. Civilian arrogance colliding with military discipline, always with the same predictable result. "The police have been called, ma'am," the security officer informed her, his tone carefully neutral, making it unclear whether this was for her benefit or because of her behavior. "They'll be here shortly to take your statement." He paused, choosing his next words with diplomatic precision. "And to discuss the matter of interfering with the King's Guard in the performance of their duties." "Interfering?" Karen's voice reached a pitch that made nearby pigeons scatter from the palace roof. "They interfered with me. That thug," she jabbed her finger toward Guard Windsor's post again, "assaulted me. Look at my hand." She thrust her reddened fingers toward the security officer's face. "This is assault. This is battery. This is excessive use of force. This is going to be the biggest lawsuit this palace has ever seen." Two police officers had arrived on scene now, their expressions suggesting they had dealt with remarkably similar situations more times than they could count. The female officer stepped forward, notebook already in hand. "Ma'am, I'm PC Sarah Mitchell. Can you please lower your voice and calmly explain what happened?" "What happened?" Karen's laugh was bordering on hysterical. "I'll tell you exactly what happened. Your precious guard attacked an innocent woman. He body-slammed me to the ground like some kind of rugby player, and then he deliberately stomped on my hand. I want him arrested immediately. I want him charged with assault." The male officer, PC Thompson, was already speaking with witnesses, moving methodically through the crowd. The veteran and his companion provided their accounts calm and factual, along with several tourists who had captured the entire incident on their phones from multiple angles. Their statements painted a remarkably different picture than Karen's version of events. "Ma'am," PC Mitchell tried again, her professional patience clearly well practiced, "multiple witnesses are stating that you were warned repeatedly to clear the ceremonial path. Is that correct?" "Oh, ceremonial path," Karen spat the words like they were poison. "This isn't some military zone. This is a tourist attraction. I paid good money to visit this overrated palace, and that man," another violent gesture toward Guard Windsor, "thinks he can assault people because of some ridiculous outdated tradition." She fumbled with her phone, her injured hand shaking with a mixture of rage and pain. "I've got lawyers on speed dial, the best lawyers in London. When I'm done, that guard will be lucky to find work as a shopping mall security guard. And wait until the media hears about this. Royal Guard attacks innocent tourist. That'll make a lovely headline, won't it? Perfect for the evening news." PC Thompson rejoined them now, his notepad filled with witness statements. "Mrs. Whitmore, according to multiple independent accounts, you were given at least 6 separate warnings to clear the path. The guard's actions were within established protocols for removing obstacles during ceremonial duties. This is standard procedure that visitors are informed about." "Obstacles?" Karen's face flushed an even deeper shade of red. "I am not an obstacle. I am a paying visitor. And stop calling it ceremonial duties like it's some sort of real military operation. They're glorified tourist attractions walking around in those ridiculous hats pretending to be soldiers. It's all just pageantry for the tourists." "They are soldiers, ma'am," the veteran interjected, unable to stay silent any longer, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had served, seen combat, earned every medal on his chest. Active duty military personnel performing their assigned duties under direct orders. The ceremonial aspect doesn't diminish the fact that they are real soldiers with real authority. Did I ask for your opinion? Karen rounded on him. Why don't you go play dress-up with them since you're so fond of defending their little marching game? She turned back to the officers, her voice rising to a near scream again. Are you going to arrest him or not? Because if you don't, I'm going straight to the media and then to my lawyers. PC Mitchell's voice remained professionally neutral, her years of training evident. Ma'am, based on the witness statements, video evidence from multiple sources, and your own admission of refusing to clear a designated military patrol route, we will not be arresting Guard Windsor. However, we do need to discuss your actions today and the potential charges you may be facing. My actions? Karen's screech echoed off the palace walls, causing tourists 50 yards away to turn and stare. I was assaulted. Look at my hand, look at my clothes. She gestured wildly at the dirt marks on her designer outfit. This outfit cost more than that guard makes in a month. I demand compensation, I demand justice, I demand that someone take me seriously. A small crowd of tourists had maintained a respectful distance, but they were all watching now. Some recording the aftermath on their phones. Children hid behind their parents while others stared openly at the spectacle of entitlement imploding. The veteran and his companion stood nearby, their military bearing evident, their presence a silent reminder of the real authority behind the ceremonial facade. This isn't over, Karen declared, jabbing her phone toward Guard Windsor's immobile form. You hear me? This isn't over. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of violent thugs they've got guarding this place. I'm going to be on every news channel by tonight. She turned back to the officers, breathing hard. I want his full name, his service number, his commanding officer's contact information, and I want it right now. PC Thompson cleared his throat. Ma'am, if you'd like to file a formal complaint, we can certainly direct you to the appropriate channels. However, I must inform you that interfering with the King's Guard in the performance of their duties is a criminal offense under the Armed Forces Act. You could be facing charges yourself. Criminal offense? Karen's laugh was sharp, bitter, disbelieving. The only criminal here is that uniformed thug, and if you won't arrest him, then I'll make sure my husband's lawyers handle this. We'll see how tough he looks when he's standing in court explaining why he assaulted a defenseless woman. The sharp sound of boots on stone announced the arrival of Guard Captain Michael Roberts, his bearing carrying the unmistakable authority of a career soldier who had commanded men in actual combat zones. The polished brass of his insignia caught the afternoon sun as he surveyed the scene before him, taking in Karen's disheveled appearance, the gathered crowd, the resigned expressions of the police officers who had clearly been through this exact scenario before. What seems to be the problem here? His voice, though quiet, carried the kind of authority that made everyone except Karen stand a little straighter. Finally! Karen thrust herself forward, her injured hand still cradled dramatically against her chest. Someone in charge. I demand the immediate arrest of Guard James Windsor for assault and battery. He violently attacked me without any provocation whatsoever. Mrs. Whitmore, Captain Roberts cut through her tirade with military precision. I've already been briefed on the situation. My guard acted entirely within established protocol when you refused to clear a designated military route after multiple documented warnings. Protocol? Karen's voice rose again, dripping with sarcasm. He body-checked me to the ground. He stomped on my hand. What kind of protocol authorizes assault on civilians? The captain's face remained impassive, each word measured. The King's Guard are active-duty military personnel operating under strict orders established by centuries of tradition and modern security requirements. They are authorized to remove obstacles from their designated path using necessary and controlled force. The level of force used is precisely calculated, practiced extensively, and appropriate to the situation. Are you actually defending this? Karen's face contorted with rage and disbelief. Do you have any idea who my husband is? Do you have any concept of the lawsuit that's coming your way? Your husband's identity is irrelevant to this situation, madam. Captain Roberts interrupted, his tone suggesting he had dealt with similar threats countless times before. What is relevant is your deliberate interference with a military unit performing its lawfully assigned duties. You were warned multiple times by multiple people, and you chose to ignore those warnings. The consequences of that choice are yours alone. PC Mitchell stepped forward, her notebook still open. Captain, we've collected statements from 17 witnesses confirming that Mrs. Whitmore ignored repeated warnings and deliberately positioned herself in the guard's designated path. We also have video evidence from 6 different sources, all showing the same sequence of events. Of course, they're all backing each other up. Karen's voice had taken on a desperate edge now. This whole place is just one big club with fancy uniforms protecting each other. Well, let me tell you something, Captain. Whatever your name is, this isn't some military dictatorship. You can't just assault civilians because they're standing in your precious path. There will be consequences for this. The captain's response was measured, each word carrying the weight of centuries of tradition. Mrs. Whitmore, the King's Guard are not a tourist attraction. They are serving military personnel performing vital security and ceremonial duties. Their role may appear ceremonial to visitors, but make no mistake. These are combat-trained soldiers who have earned their positions through years of dedicated service. Guard Windsor himself served 2 tours in Afghanistan before being selected for this prestigious duty. "Oh, spare me the military propaganda," Karen snapped, waving her phone like a weapon. "Wait until social media hears about this. Combat-trained soldier attacks defenseless woman at tourist attraction. That'll look absolutely wonderful in the headlines, won't it? Especially with all the video evidence of him assaulting me." Captain Roberts clasped his hands behind his back, his posture parade ground perfect. "Mrs. Whitmore, perhaps you're unaware that interfering with the King's Guard is a criminal offense under Section 28 of the Armed Forces Act. PC Mitchell, PC Thompson, I believe this falls under your jurisdiction now." "You cannot be serious." Karen's voice faltered slightly for the first time, a hint of uncertainty creeping in. "You're actually going to charge me? After one of your toy soldiers attacked me?" Guard Windsor executed his duty exactly as trained, exactly as ordered, and exactly as authorized by military protocol, the captain continued, unmoved by her protests. "The fact that you suffered minor injuries as a direct result of your own refusal to comply with lawful instructions is unfortunate, but entirely of your own making. Your choice to ignore multiple warnings from multiple sources led directly to this outcome." "Lawful orders?" Karen's voice cracked, but she pushed forward. "I'm a civilian. You can't give me military orders. This is assault. Plain and simple. And I will not rest until everyone involved is held accountable." "PC Mitchell," Captain Roberts turned to the officer, effectively dismissing Karen's continued protests. "I'll have my office forward you the relevant security footage, duty logs, and incident reports. I trust you can handle the situation from here." "This is outrageous." Karen's voice had taken on a note of panic now. "You can't just ignore me. I demand to speak to whoever's in charge of this entire operation. Someone higher up than you. Someone who understands that you can't just attack tourists." Captain Roberts turned back to her one final time, his expression unchanged, but his voice carrying a note of finality. "Mrs. Whitmore, this incident is now a police matter. I suggest you direct your complaints through the proper legal channels. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you reflect on the seriousness of interfering with military personnel in the execution of their lawful duties." "Right then, Mrs. Whitmore." PC Mitchell stepped forward, her demeanor still professional, but with an edge of steel now. "We'll need you to accompany us to the station to formally process this incident." "Process?" Karen's eyes widened with a mixture of disbelief and growing fear. "Process what? I'm the victim here. You can't possibly be serious. You can't arrest me for being assaulted." "You have 2 options," PC Thompson interjected. "You can come voluntarily to provide your statement and discuss the situation, or we can formally arrest you for interfering with military personnel and disturbing the peace. Your choice. The choice is yours, but you need to make it now." The veteran who had tried to warn her from the very beginning stepped forward one last time. "Ma'am, if I may offer some advice, sometimes accepting responsibility for our actions is the better part of valor. This situation doesn't have to get worse than it already is." "Responsibility?" Karen clutched her designer bag like a shield, her knuckles white. The only one who should be taking responsibility is that thug in the red costume. This is absolutely... She stopped mid-sentence as PC Mitchell produced a pair of handcuffs from her belt. The metallic click as she opened them seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. "You wouldn't dare," Karen breathed. "Mrs. Whitmore," Captain Roberts spoke one final time, his voice carrying the weight of generations of military discipline. "Your actions today demonstrated a profound disrespect, not just for the uniform, but for the principles it represents. These guards are not actors in a historical reenactment. They are soldiers who have bled for their country, who stand ready to defend it at a moment's notice, who maintain traditions that connect us to centuries of service and sacrifice. The ceremony you mocked is built on the graves of men and women who gave everything in defense of this nation." "I don't care about your ceremonies." Karen's voice had lost its aggressive edge now, replaced with something closer to desperation. "This is about assault. This is about battery. This is about false arrest. My husband's lawyers will..." "Your husband's lawyers will find," PC Mitchell cut in smoothly, "that every action taken today was fully within the bounds of law, established protocol, and justified use of force. Now, Mrs. Whitmore, shall we proceed to the station voluntarily, or do I need to formally place you under arrest and read you your rights?" Karen looked around wildly but found no sympathy anywhere in the surrounding faces. The crowd that had witnessed her behavior watched in silence as she was led away, still protesting, but with significantly less volume now, about lawyers and lawsuits and social media revenge that sounded increasingly hollow with each step. Captain Roberts turned to address the gathered tourists, his voice carrying clearly. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience during this unfortunate incident. Please remember that while we warmly welcome visitors to witness our ceremonies, these are not mere performances. Every guard you see here has earned their position through years of dedicated military service. They represent the finest traditions of the British Armed Forces, and we expect all visitors to respect both their duty and their authority." As the crowd began to disperse slowly, returning to the normal rhythm of a tourist day, the two veterans exchanged knowing looks. The older one touched his campaign medals thoughtfully. "Some people," he mused quietly, "never learn the difference between authority and entertainment, between tradition and tourist trap." His companion nodded, watching as Karen's continued protests faded into the distance. "Pride comes before a fall," he replied, "and some falls are harder than others, especially when you land on ancient cobblestones." Guard Windsor remained at his post throughout all of this, his bearing perfect, his discipline unshaken by the incident that had erupted because of him. The afternoon sun glinted off his brass buttons and polished boots, the same boots that had inadvertently taught an entitled tourist a lesson about respect she wouldn't soon forget. The palace grounds returned to their normal routine within minutes, the ancient stones having witnessed yet another clash between civilian arrogance and military discipline. The outcome, as always, had been inevitable, a reminder that some traditions endure, not because they're outdated relics of the past, but because they represent timeless values of duty, honor, and respect that transcend any individual's convenience or desire for the perfect social media moment. So what makes someone think they're above tradition, above respect, above the very institutions that have stood guard over civilization for centuries? Maybe it's the modern age of instant gratification that convinces people their personal convenience outweighs centuries of established protocol. Or perhaps it's the entitled belief that money and social status put them beyond the reach of rules that apply to everyone else. But as we saw today, some lessons come at a price higher than designer outfits and legal fees. The Royal Guards aren't actors in a historical reenactment or theme park entertainers in costumes. They are highly trained soldiers carrying on a tradition of service that stretches back through generations of sacrifice. Their discipline isn't for show, and their authority isn't up for negotiation or debate. When a guard stands at his post, he's not just standing there for tourists to photograph. He's maintaining a living link to every soldier who stood that post before him, some of whom died defending what that post represents. Next time you visit Buckingham Palace or any historical institution with ceremonial guards, remember this. Respect isn't just about following posted rules, it's about understanding that some things are bigger than our individual wants or conveniences. The guard standing watch today may have served in Afghanistan yesterday and could be deployed to another conflict zone tomorrow. The ceremony you witness isn't just for tourists. It's a living, breathing link to centuries of service and sacrifice that deserves recognition, not mockery. Think about it this way. These young men and women in their pristine uniforms have chosen to serve. They've undergone grueling training. They've proven themselves worthy of standing in positions that their predecessors have held for over 500 years. They maintain standards that most people couldn't sustain for 5 minutes, let alone 2 hours at a time. And they do it all while tourists poke, prod, mock, and test their limits day after day after day. The discipline required to remain motionless while someone makes faces at you, while children scream, while people deliberately try to make you laugh or flinch, is extraordinary. The self-control needed to maintain perfect composure when you're exhausted, when the uniform is heavy, when the weather is brutal, when your feet are screaming in pain. That takes a special kind of person. These aren't just ceremonial positions handed out to anyone who looks good in a uniform. These are earned honors given to soldiers who have proven their worth in ways most of us will never understand. And yet, people like Karen treat them like props in their social media productions, like obstacles to be ignored, like actors who exist solely for entertainment value. This disrespect doesn't just insult the individual guard standing there. It insults every person who has ever worn that uniform, every soldier who stood that post before them, every military family that has sacrificed so that traditions like these could continue. When Karen planted herself in that marching path, she wasn't just being inconsiderate to one guard. She was declaring that her photo opportunity mattered more than centuries of military tradition, that her lunch reservation was more important than the orders those soldiers were following, that her comfort and convenience trumped the discipline and dedication of people who had sworn an oath to serve. And the really tragic part? She probably still doesn't understand what she did wrong, even as she was led away by police, even as witness after witness confirmed she'd been warned repeatedly, even with video evidence from multiple angles showing her deliberate refusal to move. She still saw herself as the victim, still believed she was in the right, still thought that money, status, and entitlement would somehow override military protocol and legal authority. This is the danger of a culture that teaches people they're always right, that their feelings matter more than facts, that rules are suggestions rather than requirements. Karen genuinely believed those guards would step around her, not because it made sense, not because anyone told her they would, but simply because she couldn't imagine a world where she wasn't the center of attention, where her desires didn't take priority over everything else. But reality has a way of teaching lessons that gentle warnings couldn't. The cobblestones of Buckingham Palace have no concern for designer outfits. Military boots following orders don't check for hands that shouldn't be in their path. And centuries of tradition don't pause because someone thinks lunch reservations are more important. Karen learned that day what countless others have learned before her. Authority isn't about who has the loudest voice or the most expensive lawyer. Real authority comes from legitimacy, from tradition, from the backing of institutions that have stood the test of time. The guard who removed her from his path wasn't being cruel or vindictive. He was simply doing his job, following his training, executing his orders, the same way soldiers have done for generations. And here's what's really important for everyone to understand. Those warnings Karen ignored. They weren't suggestions. They weren't requests. They were genuine attempts to prevent exactly what happened. The palace attendants, the security officers, the police presence, the veterans who tried to intervene, they all knew what was coming. They all tried to save Karen from her own arrogance. But you can't save someone who refuses to believe they need saving. The incident at Buckingham Palace that day wasn't an isolated event. It's part of a larger pattern we're seeing across society. A pattern where people confuse access with entitlement, where the ability to visit a place somehow translates in their minds to ownership of that space, where the presence of a camera phone grants them imaginary rights that supersede established rules and protocols. Social media has amplified this phenomenon to dangerous levels. The pressure to create content, to get likes, to go viral, has made people take risks they would never have considered before. It's made them ignore common sense, disregard safety warnings, and disrespect institutions that deserve reverence. All for what? A few seconds of internet fame? A handful of likes from strangers who'll forget the post within minutes? Karen's story should serve as a wake-up call, not just to tourists visiting ceremonial sites, but to anyone who thinks their personal desires override collective responsibility. The guards at Buckingham Palace aren't unique in deserving respect. Police officers, firefighters, medical professionals, teachers, and countless others who serve the public deserve the same consideration. They're doing jobs that keep society functioning, often at great personal cost, and they shouldn't have to deal with entitled behavior on top of their already demanding responsibilities. The veterans who tried to warn Karen understood something she didn't. They recognized the uniform for what it represented, not a costume, not a photo opportunity, but a symbol of service and sacrifice. They had worn similar uniforms themselves. They had stood their own posts. They had followed their own orders. They knew from personal experience that military discipline isn't theater. It's the foundation of an effective fighting force, and it doesn't bend for anyone's convenience. What's particularly troubling about Karen's behavior is how she dismissed their warnings. These were men who had served, who had earned the right to speak with authority on military matters, and she treated them with contempt. She waved away their medals, mocked their service, and essentially told them their experience meant nothing compared to her need for a selfie. That level of disrespect goes beyond simple rudeness. It reveals a fundamental disconnect from reality, a complete inability to recognize genuine authority when confronted with it. The police officers who responded to the scene had seen it all before. Their resigned expressions, their methodical collection of witness statements, their professional handling of Karen's escalating hysteria, all spoke to the fact that this wasn't their first encounter with entitled tourist behavior. They knew the law. They knew the protocols. They knew Karen was in the wrong before they even arrived. But they followed procedure, gave her every opportunity to explain herself, and ultimately treated her with far more courtesy than she had shown anyone else that day. Captain Roberts's arrival marked the moment when Karen should have realized how serious the situation had become. A senior officer doesn't leave his duties to address a minor tourist complaint. His presence meant this had escalated beyond a simple incident. It had become a matter of military discipline, institutional authority, and legal consequences. But even then, even with a captain standing before her explaining the gravity of her actions, Karen couldn't set aside her ego long enough to understand the trouble she was in. His words about Guard Windsor serving in Afghanistan should have been another wake-up call. This wasn't some young recruit playing soldier. This was a combat veteran who had earned his position through years of dedicated service in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. The man who had removed her from the path had faced actual threats, made life and death decisions, and earned the right to wear that uniform through sacrifice most people can't imagine. And Karen had dismissed him as a thug in a costume. The video evidence from multiple sources meant there was no ambiguity about what had happened. Karen couldn't claim she hadn't been warned. She couldn't argue she didn't know the rules. She couldn't pretend the guards acted without provocation. Every angle, every moment, every warning was documented. The truth was recorded from 6 different perspectives, and it told the same story every time. Karen had been told to move. Karen had refused. The guards had followed protocol. End of story. But perhaps the most important lesson from this incident isn't about Karen at all. It's about the guards themselves. Despite the provocation, despite the insults, despite being called thugs and toy soldiers, they maintained perfect discipline. Guard Windsor didn't lose his temper. He didn't use excessive force. He didn't let his emotions dictate his actions. He simply followed his training, executed his duty, and continued his march without breaking stride. That level of professionalism, that degree of self-control, is what separates trained soldiers from ordinary people. After Karen was led away, life at Buckingham Palace returned to normal within minutes. The ceremony continued. Tourists took their photos from appropriate distances. Children watched in awe, and the guards stood their posts with the same unwavering discipline they always had. Because one entitled woman's tantrum couldn't diminish centuries of tradition, one viral incident couldn't undermine the legitimacy of an institution that has served the nation through wars, disasters, and social upheaval. The 2 veterans who witnessed the incident understood this better than anyone. They had seen similar confrontations during their own service. They knew that military discipline exists precisely for moments like these, when emotions run high and situations could easily spiral out of control. The protocols that Karen found so ridiculous, the orders she thought were negotiable, those are the frameworks that allow soldiers to maintain order even in chaotic circumstances. They're not suggestions, they're not guidelines, they're the foundation of military effectiveness. Guard Windsor returned to his duties that day knowing he had done nothing wrong. He had followed his orders, he had executed his training, he had maintained the standards expected of the King's Guard. The incident with Karen wasn't a failure of protocol. It was proof that the protocols worked exactly as intended. An obstacle appeared in the patrol route. Warnings were given. The obstacle didn't move. The obstacle was removed using appropriate force. Mission accomplished. The lesson here isn't complicated. Respect isn't optional. Authority isn't negotiable. Traditions matter, and consequences are real. Karen went to Buckingham Palace expecting to take a selfie and move on with her day. Instead, she left in police custody, facing potential criminal charges, with video evidence of her behavior circulating online, and a painful reminder that some institutions won't bend to accommodate entitlement. So we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone mistaking authority for entertainment, treating those in uniform as if they were hired performers there for personal amusement rather than fulfilling an actual duty? Maybe you've seen tourists taunting guards, or people disrespecting police officers, or individuals who think military personnel are there to serve their every whim rather than serve their country. How would you have handled this situation if you were in that crowd watching Karen refuse to move? Would you have tried to warn her one more time? Or would you have stepped back, knowing what was coming, understanding that some lessons can only be learned through experience? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between enforcing rules and avoiding confrontation? Share your thoughts with us. And here's another question worth considering. Why do you think incidents like this keep happening? Is it social media culture that makes people prioritize the perfect shot over common sense and safety? Is it a broader societal problem where respect for authority and tradition has eroded? Or is it simply that there have always been people like Karen, and now we just have cameras to document their behavior? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single comment, and we genuinely love hearing your perspectives and different viewpoints on these stories. Your insights often bring up points we hadn't considered, and they add so much value to these discussions about respect, tradition, and the consequences of entitlement. If you enjoyed this story and the lesson behind it, don't forget to show your support. Hit that like button to let us know you want more content exploring the intersection of tradition, discipline, and modern entitlement. Your likes help us understand what resonates with you and guide us in creating more content you'll find valuable. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new story. We bring you incredible tales of discipline, bravery, and the important lessons behind these time-honored traditions every single day. Whether it's stories about royal guards maintaining their composure under ridiculous circumstances, veterans sharing their experiences, or civilians learning hard lessons about respect and authority, we cover it all with the depth and context these stories deserve. Turn on that notification bell so you're always the first to see our latest uploads. We post new content regularly, and you won't want to miss the fascinating stories we have lined up. Tomorrow we're bringing you another incredible encounter that will make you think differently about the people who serve in ceremonial roles. Share this video with your friends and family who might appreciate understanding the deeper meaning behind these traditions. Sometimes the best way to spread respect and awareness is simply by sharing stories that illustrate why these things matter. Your shares help these important messages reach people who need to hear them. And if you can't get enough of these incredible stories about the Royal Guards and their encounters with people who underestimate them, we have an entire playlist dedicated to these moments. Watch more of our videos exploring the reality behind the ceremony, the training behind the uniform, and the discipline behind the tradition. You'll find links to our full playlist in the description below. Each video offers a unique perspective on what it means to serve with honor and maintain composure under pressure. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this amazing community. Your engagement, your insights, and your respect for these traditions mean absolutely everything to us. You're not just passive viewers. You're active participants in preserving and promoting the values that make civilization possible. Until next time, remember that respect isn't outdated. Tradition isn't just pageantry. And some lessons are best learned through those who stand guard, not just over palaces, but over the very principles that separate civilization from chaos. These guards represent something far bigger than themselves. They are living embodiments of duty, honor, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to something greater than personal comfort or convenience. The next time you see someone in uniform, whether it's a royal guard at Buckingham Palace, a police officer on the street, or a veteran wearing their medals with pride, take a moment to recognize what that uniform represents. It's not a costume. It's not a prop for your photos. It's a symbol of service, of sacrifice, of dedication to principles that transcend individual desires. And if you ever find yourself at Buckingham Palace or any historic site with ceremonial guards, stay behind the barriers. Respect the designated areas. Listen to the warnings. Appreciate the ceremony for what it truly is. A living tradition maintained by real soldiers with real authority doing a real job. Take your photos from appropriate distances. Enjoy the spectacle. Marvel at the discipline. But never ever think that your personal desires override their duty, because as Karen learned in the most painful way possible, tradition doesn't bend for entitlement, discipline doesn't pause for convenience, and military orders don't stop for selfies. The cobblestones are hard, the consequences are real, and the lessons, while painful, are absolutely necessary for those who refuse to learn them any other way. See you in the next video, and remember, always show respect to those in uniform because they've earned it through service, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to duty. They stand watch so that we can live in safety. They maintain discipline so that civilization can function. They follow orders so that chaos doesn't prevail. The least we can do is show them the respect their service deserves. Stay safe, stay respectful, and we'll see you tomorrow with another incredible story that will remind you why traditions matter, why discipline endures, and why some lessons are worth learning, even when they hurt. Until then, take care, and remember that respect costs nothing but means everything.